G'day, it's Alex at One Absolute Good. Today I'm going to share with you Marie S. Watts' Gems, number 2, Revelation. It is written in the prophets, and they shall be all taught of God. Every man that hath heard and hath learned of the Father cometh unto me. Not that any man hath seen the Father, save he which is of God. He hath seen the Father. These inspired words of Jesus are statements of tremendous spiritual significance when their genuine import is revealed. Here Jesus states plainly that when we are God-taught or God-conscious, we arrive at the revelation that we too are the Christ. When he says, "Every man that hath learned of the Father cometh unto me," he certainly did not mean that those who were aware of their God identity were to come to a personal Jesus for further instruction. Neither did he intend to imply that these God-conscious ones were to be followers of a personal Jesus. What is the spiritual significance of cometh unto me? To come unto the Christ means to discover our genuine and only identity as God identified. Actually, God teaches no man. God reveals, identifies, and manifests itself as the entire life, consciousness, intelligence, and body of each identity. So, instead of being God-taught, we are God-revealed. Perhaps a better way of saying it would be, we are God's revelation of itself. He who has realized that all revelation must take place within his own consciousness has already perceived his Christ identity. What is the Christ identity? The Christ identity is God revealing, identifying, and manifesting itself as you, as me, and as everyone. The Christ identity is but another way of saying that God is appearing as the one that has been named man. The second verse of the foregoing quotation clarifies the fact and even emphasizes it. Jesus' statement that only he who is of God hath seen the Father is particularly revealing. No man, no so-called mortal or human being can see or perceive God. It is only when the false, dual sense of man is dispersed that God is perceived, and in this perception, God is known to be the all of the specific identity. Conversely, the specific identity is known to be all that God is and nothing else. In other words, to see the Father is to see the self, for the Father is the self. To really see the self is to see the Father, for the self is just what the Father is and nothing else. All revelation is self-revelation. This has been stated before, but let us amplify its spiritual significance. If one believes that something outside of, or other than, the self can be revealed, he must believe that he is separate from the revelation that is essential to his complete self-realization. He must also believe that there is something outside of, or other than, the self to be revealed. This is two-ness. This is duality and a very subtle aspect of self-deception. It is this deceptive fallacy that seems to bind us, restrict us, and blind us to the immeasurable immensity of our God being. There are two aspects of this dualistic illusion. One aspect, of course, is the long-fostered delusion that someone other than yourself can pour spiritual knowledge into your consciousness and thus add to your spirituality and your knowledge of God. The churches have used this method of preaching and teaching throughout the centuries. The church layman has always been taught and advised by a minister, a priest, or someone who supposedly was more spiritual than the church member. Indeed, in some churches, the layman does not have enough faith in himself to pray directly to God, but he must have a priest or a minister who prays to God for him. This would seem to be about as dual as it is possible for one to become. Of course, in this instance, the seeming separation between God and man is glaringly apparent to those of enlightened consciousness. In this orthodox limitation, it is easy to see that the church member is denying his own God identity by looking to another for spiritual help, guidance, and knowledge. But what about those of us who have left the church and still continue to look to some leader, teacher, or author to impart more knowledge of God to us? Is not this just another phase of the same old limitation, self-denial, and dualism? Is not this just another aspect of the age-old limitation of orthodoxy? Indeed it is, and there is beginning to be an awakening to this fact. The second erroneous aspect of this dualistic illusion is that it is a denial of the genuine and only identity. It is true that this spiritual awakening seems to take place gradually. It is also true that there are some who appear to be more spiritually enlightened than others. Yet we know that God does not divide itself into partials by identifying itself. We know that it is the same God, and just as much God, identified as each and every one of us. We are never going to realize the fullness and completeness of our own God identity by a denial that all God is expressed, identified, and manifested as each specific aspect of its identification. Our God-conscious being cannot be revealed so long as we continue to expect a greater impartation of God from outside our own God identity. Indeed, there is no outside, for there is no way to measure the unlimited immensity of our God-conscious being. Is this a new truth that is being expressed here? No. Is this the first time that this important aspect of truth has been seen, written, or expressed? No, indeed. Centuries ago, Lao Tzu, the great Chinese illumined one, was fully cognizant of this fact, so much so that he was unwilling to write extensively, knowing that all realization must be self-revealed. In our own beloved Bible, we find the prophet Jeremiah in great illumination saying, "And they shall teach no more every man his neighbor, and every man his brother, saying, Know the Lord. For they shall all know me, from the least of them unto the greatest of them, saith the Lord." This represents but two of the illumined ones who have perceived this all-important truth. Actually, it has been seen, spoken, and written again and again by those who were illumined. We are just beginning to realize the tremendous importance of this fundamental truth. Does this mean that we should discontinue reading the inspired works of both ancient and modern authors of enlightened spiritual literature? Not at all. Neither does it mean that we should abstain from attending classes and lectures if we so desire. But let us ask ourselves, what is our purpose in reading this literature? Why are we attending these classes and lectures? Is it in the hope that more of God will be revealed to us? Do we believe that God expresses itself more completely as the author or teacher than as the listener or the reader? Does the author or teacher exist as a different consciousness than the reader or the listener? Is not the reader, the listener, the very same God consciousness as the author, the teacher? Having asked yourself these questions and being aware of the answers, you can then attend classes or read in full, glorious freedom. Completely released from the seeming bondage to teacher or author, you discover that the words you hear or read are but sounds and symbols, reminding you of that which you already know and are. An inspired book, class, or talk is a beautiful and satisfying experience when you are already aware of your completeness as God, completely identified, and when you know that there is no truth being given to you that is outside of or other than your own consciousness. Dear one, you are the revelation. You are the realization. You are God revealing and realizing its glorious self. All that exists as you is God saying, "Behold, this is I."